So we want policymakers to take notice that there's something happening in urban communities. On the one side, there's charter operators, there's billionaire foundations, and their acolytes who are supporting the private control of public money for education as envisioned by the white economist Milton Friedman in the 1950s. On the other side are parents and communities who are demanding high quality, properly resourced, democratically controlled neighborhood public schools. The dispute has even taken over our civil rights organizations. The National Urban League, the United Negro College Fund, NCLR, and other civil rights organizations have typically aligned themselves with market-based school choice proponents. On the other side, the NAACP delegates have voted 3 times over the past few years resolutions critical of charter schools. The most recent resolution is still awaiting the vote by the NAACP National Board. The Black Lives Matter Coalition, our nation's newest civil rights organization, composed of more than 50 organizations, also released a platform of policy demands critiquing privatization and charter schools. But recently, both sides of the education reform civil war, yes, that's what it is, it's a civil war, have focused on communicating to policymakers and the public that they're representing the interests of urban communities that have been historically underserved on purpose. Market-based choice proponents underscored this dispute this past week when they wrote a letter saying that they represented the interests of thousands of Black students and bemoaned the NAACP's recent resolution criticizing charter schools. But today, in response to the market-based reformers, we, the supporters of high-quality, properly resourced, democratically controlled neighborhood public schools are holding events here in New York for the presidential debate. The Journey for Justice Alliance is also aligning with the Network for Publication Action, of which I'm a founding board member. The market-based school choice proponents' primary agenda has been to propose privately operated school choice as the fix for the education for the poor in our nation. By contrast, the Journey for Justice Alliance believes that the conversation should be refocused. It's almost like that friend that wants to change the conversation. We're not going to allow them to change the conversation. The conversation is about the inequity in our schools. It's the major failure of the American public education system. This platform calls for a moratorium on privatization, which aligns with the NAACP's 2016 call. Over the past 2 decades, the U.S. Department of Education has spent $2 billion, that's billion with the B, on privately controlled charter schools. The alternative vision that the Alliance has put forth today says that money needs to be spent on 10,000 sustainable community schools. The Alliance's platform also calls for an end to zero-tolerance discipline policies. What does this really mean in practice? I talked with a teacher from a charter school this week. If a Black child drops a pencil on the floor twice, they can go to detention. That's what no-tolerance discipline policies do to Black children. Recent research by the UCLA Civil Rights Project found that charter schools are even worse than traditional schools when it comes to discipline for Black and brown students. Therefore, it's rightly so that the Alliance is calling for an end to no excuses discipline. The Alliance is also calling for an end to mayoral control and appointed school boards. The overuse of standardized tests for these decisions and the dismal results that are shown in the peer-reviewed literature over and over from the mayoral control and takeover of our schools. Today, we also march for equity, believing that school choice for families is actually being able to choose equity. The platform so eloquently says that America does everything but equity for education. As a result, the Alliance is calling for a national equity assessment for America's public schools because we know what the elephant in the room is. The nicer, more expensive house you buy, the nicer public school you get, and that is on purpose. Our being here today underscores community-based opposition to the destruction of our community public schools at the expense of privately operated charter schools and other for-profit entities. The platform shows a real and important difference in the visions for education reform between those who believe in privately operated, market-based school choice and those who are demanding high-quality, properly resourced, democratically controlled neighborhood public schools. The J4J platform has made these alternatives very clear. Thank you.